Welcome into a special mock draft episode. I am joined by Hail Mary Sports, a great channel on YouTube. We're going to be doing a anti-consensus mock draft. So the way that we're setting this up is let's see, it's NFL mock draft database. They take all the mock drafts on the internet. They make like a consensus pick for each player, and we cannot take the player that team is most popularly mocked, just throughout all of the mock drafts that are out there. So, probably going to be pretty unrealistic for maybe the first three picks. But I think after that, with how crazy things can get on draft day, it's a pretty cool way to explore some different scenarios that might not be getting mocked as frequently. As someone with limited cooking skills, I've always struggled to find healthy meals that taste good and don't take a long time to prepare. But Factor helps me avoid takeout and ordering in with delicious and nutritious, no nonsense food that's ready quickly. Their meals come pre prepared, ready to eat in 2 minutes, which is perfect for busy lifestyles. And if you want to try this out, head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code ATOZFilm50 and get 50% off your first Factor box and free wellness shots for life. 2 free wellness shots from 3 available flavors for every order while you're an active subscriber. Before we get into it, let my subscribers know where they can find you on social media and YouTube and everything like that.
Yeah, so obviously, thanks, James, for having me on. But I am Alex, owner of Hail Mary Sports. So you feel free to follow me on YouTube. I do a ton of draft content, doing positional rankings right now. And obviously, James and I met over in Mobile. So it's pretty awesome if you guys ever get a chance to go there. Definitely do so. Amazing place, amazing vibes, especially when it's not raining. Hallelujah. But I'm over on Twitter primarily, as well as YouTube. YouTube's the main hub of everything. But it's just always great to be able to talk either nonsensibly on X or be able to talk with a little bit more class and sensibility on YouTube. So excited for this.
All right, let's get into it. So I'm going to be doing odds and you got evens. And so
Sure.
pretty easy decision here for the Bears at number 1 overall. Going to go Drake May. I think there's a lot of people that would probably go with Jaden Daniels here, maybe even some that would take JJ McCarthy. But I'm going to go chalk and take Drake May, who I think is my quarterback too. And if I had to guess, I would still say probably the consensus quarterback two around the league. I would bet that, he's probably the most common pick there.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, again, just reminding the people who didn't listen in the first part that this is a non-consensus draft. So obviously, Caleb Williams would be the QB1. But QB2 right now or at pick number 2 for the Washington Commanders. It's going to be obviously Caleb Williams. Right now, the consensus is Jaden Daniels. So I am easily running to the podium with the best selection in the draft and sending Caleb back to DC.
Yeah, and I'll put a graphic up on the screen for each of the picks of who the player that we can't pick for that team is. But I'll make sure to mention that before we do the picks. So at number 3, the Patriots, their consensus pick is Drake May, and I'm going to go with Jaden Daniels. I mean, I think that I'm looking at the consensus rankings for him, and it's funny. It's like there's a huge gap between 13th and 19th on people's boards. Like everyone either has them in the top 7 or they've got them somewhere in the 20s. So there is kind of a split on Jaden Daniels. It seems like I lean more towards the top 10. And I've gone back and forth about whether or not the Patriots should build up their surrounding core for a quarterback or just go ahead and take Jaden Daniels. I think that ideally you put a rookie quarterback into a great situation, but you might not have an opportunity to draft a quarterback as good as Jaden Daniels next year. So that's going to be my pick.
It's very true. Obviously, next year we're talking about the top of the class. Projected is Shedeur Sanders and Quinn Ewers. A lot of people would assume that Jaden Daniels would be superior, but also if you build a really good cast, it's going to be very difficult for you to be poor enough in terms of your overall record to be in striking range again. Totally agree with that. Pick 4. I mean, obviously we discussed a Vikings trade up, but it's, I guess, consensus for the Vikings to go after JJ McCarthy. So it wouldn't really make sense for a move up if they're going to draft anybody but JJ McCarthy. So we can always talk about that, but I'm going to actually stick and pick with the Cardinals. If they don't end up going after Marvin Harrison Jr., there's a lot of rumors that Malik Neighbors is wide receiver 1 on multiple teams' boards. Now, how much of that is smokescreen? I don't know. I actually have them graded fairly similarly, so I don't really think that it's a massive issue to have, Malik over Marvin. They have different skill sets, and, Arizona is certainly open to be able to have the skill set Malik Neighbors be fully actualized rather than being limited by other receivers that have a similar skill set.
Yeah, there is definitely such a thing. I totally agree with you on Malik Neighbors versus Marvin Harrison Jr. I have Marvin as wide receiver 1, but Malik is a top 5 prospect for me, and I would probably put them in the same tier. I think there is definitely such a thing as smoke screens and misinformation getting leaked out to the media, but just because somebody's been like high on the PFF mock draft simulator all draft season, and then if it turns out that like other teams aren't as high on them, that doesn't mean it's a smoke screen. That doesn't mean it's prospect fatigue. It's like everybody, all teams are going to have different opinions on these players for different schemes. So yeah, I think that if you had to guess how many teams had Marvin Harrison Jr. at wide receiver 1 and how many had Malik Neighbors at wide receiver 1, where would you like ballpark put that split?
I would go 2/3 for Marvin just because I think he's a little bit more complete. And I think probably a third of the league has a relatively complete receiver that could utilize Malik as good as Malik can be used. So I love Marvin Harrison Jr. because he's all around. So I would say 2/3 would go for Marvin because those teams really should be looking for more of a complete receiver than a little bit more role specific Malik.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there.
All
right. So the Chargers are picking at 5. Their consensus pick is Malik Neighbors, so we can just flip flop that pretty easily and go with Marvin Harrison Jr. Like you said, just a complete, well-rounded, do-it-all receiver. Outside of like some minor drop issues this past season, there's not a whole lot of really flaws that you can pick out in his game, and I get, there is some, I think probably the most likely situation in reality is that the Chargers would trade back. There's a lot of people talking about how Jim Harbaugh wants to build out his team and, potentially take an offensive lineman. I still think that you just got to take best player available for a team that's pretty much rebuilding. And I think that's Marvin Harrison Jr.
Absolutely. And James, I want to ask you this. Obviously, 4 and 5 are the target destinations for a trade up for the Vikings to go after JJ McCarthy. In the real draft, which spot do you think the Vikings would move up to? Or do you think the Vikings just genuinely want 2 first-round picks?
Yeah, and I think they're definitely moving up for a quarterback. My guess is that they're going to just start at pick number 2 with Washington and just go down the list calling everyone, offering those 2 first round picks that they have. First one to bite on it, they're going to take that. And obviously like you want to get as high up as possible. But definitely want to, I think, secure a spot with one of the top 4 quarterbacks as they see it, with Jaden Daniels and JJ McCarthy being the other 2.
Sure. If you were the Chargers or the Cardinals, would you accept the 2 first-round picks over Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison?
I probably would. You might have to go and balance it out like in a trade value chart and add on a 3rd or a 4th round pick or something. But just philosophically, as far as trading down, I'm usually going to be someone that leans towards just getting as many shots as possible, with blue chip or first round prospects. And, especially if I see the argument, if you're a team that's like 1 player away and you're in a Super Bowl window, but if you're a rebuilding team, you just want to get as many talented players on rookie contracts as you can.
Very true. So at pick number 6, the consensus player is Rome Odunze, and I'm about to go after a pick that I have yet to ever see be taken to the New York Giants, but their corner core is kind of crap. Just got to call it out as it is. And Deonte Banks, in my opinion, has a similar ceiling and base skill set to what I love about Quinion Mitchell. And I think the NFL values elite corner ones. And I think in this system, Quinion Mitchell might be able to really thrive. So I'm going to take a big swing right here. But whether it's the first or the second round, I think the Giants are pretty desperate to go after that cornerback number 2/1 position.
I like that. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about corner for them. Definitely wouldn't bet money on it, but man, you pair Deonte Banks, someone that can just thrive in press man. You get Quinion Mitchell, can do a little bit of both, but best in off coverage. I mean, yeah, that has the potential to be a pretty nasty cornerback duo.
Mm.
Um, it'll be interesting, because they have a new defensive coordinator, Shane Bowen, from the
Yep.
Titans, and he's not as much just like press man every single play like they were have been in recent years. So that he likes to mix up coverages a little bit more. All right, Titans are up next at 7. The consensus pick is Joe Alt, and he's sitting there. It's a shame that I can't take him.
Yep.
I'm gonna go with a hot take here, and I'm gonna take the guy who I think I have him as tackle 3 right now, but I'm really leaning towards making him tackle 2, and that's gonna be JC Latham, tackle out of Alabama. I just think that the power that he has as far as, dropping his anchor, moving people off the line of scrimmage, he's really talented hand usage. Kind of question his pocket range a little bit, but I just think there's so much natural talent there for a young player that's continuing to ascend, and he'll plug right in at right tackle for them, which I think is about 95% as valuable as left tackle nowadays, since pass rushers line up on either side.
Very true. Something that I love that you said there is that he's ascending, because I really did see growth from last year to this year. One thing I'm curious if you've seen this as well. One of the issues I've had with JC is that he kind of gives up a little early on plays. I don't know if he gets tired, but like I genuinely see him stop blocking. Have you ever seen that, or am I just going a little
More,
bit
are
on
you
the crazy
talking
side?
like run game, pass blocking,
Pass
or
pro
both? Pass pro.
specifically.
I haven't noticed that, but
It popped off to me again today because I was watching some edge rushers, and I was like, man, like I was excited to see some JC Latham just obviously by osmosis. And I saw it again today because that was one of the things he reduced significantly, in my opinion, since 2022. So he's done significantly better in terms of not having those pop up. But I saw it again today, and it's like I'm rooting as hard as I can for JC Latham. It was just something that caught my eye. I was just wondering if you'd seen
I'll
it.
have to check that out. My biggest issue with Latham is just the penalties. I mean, he was one of the most penalized tackles in college football last season. I think he had like 19. No, he had 9. Okay, so off by 10, but that's still a lot.
Yeah.
All right. So you're up with pick 10 or pick 9, pick 8 with the Falcons.
There we go. Pick
There we
number
go.
8 with the Falcons. Consensus pick, Dallas Turner, obviously is the like head honcho for that selection. Would work great in Raheem Morris's system, but I'm just going to go back to, he's actually my number 3 player in the class. I ended up taking my number 2 corner earlier, but I think this team needs a number 2 corner. I'm going to go after my number 1 in Terrion Arnold. His field vision is honestly cerebral. He reminded me a lot of Joey Porter Jr., who was my number 2 player last year on my board, but obviously different stature, a little bit different ability overall. Very fluid. I mean, sometimes he gets beat, but I love his ability to rebound, and his tackling ability, to be fair, is actually far superior than I ever expected. His personality, creme de la creme. I think we might see Terrion Arnold go a little bit higher than what we expect.
Yeah, man, his personality is infectious. I always get suggested his TikTok videos. They like barely get any views, but he has a very funny TikTok. Like tells a lot of Nick Saban stories. So yeah, I like that pick for the Falcons. Bears at 9. Their consensus pick at number 9 is Jared Verse, which I wouldn't have expected. But they get Drake May at pick 1, and I think this is a pretty easy decision to go with Rome Odunze, wide receiver out of Washington. I think, a firm step down from the top 2 receivers. I don't really think that his testing at the combine showed up on tape that much, but he's a player that I just have a hard time seeing him be a bust in the NFL. He might not
Yeah,
be a top 5 type of receiver at any point in his career. But you pair DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, that's just like a dream receiver core to pair with a rookie quarterback.
absolutely. Like I love Rome. He is solidified as a significant tier below both Malik Neighbors as well as Marvin Harrison Jr. But the thing about Rome is I think he's the best receiver in this class in the red zone. I don't know why, but his route running improves in the red zone. His field awareness improves in the red zone. He just knows how to score. And I think someone who is a route running technician like Keenan Allen is perfect for Rome Odunze to be able to learn from. So big fan of that. For me at pick 10, the consensus pick is actually Brock Bowers, which is a little bit of a surprise to me because, I love Brock, but tight end doesn't seem to be the most surprising pick for me or the most enticing pick at 10. But I'm going to go Joe Alt. They picked up 2 tackles to be able to play 1 year, but injuries always happen. But also Joe Alt, I think, especially if you want him to be the successor at right tackle, because he's been able to do drills at both left and right, you now have time for him to become comfortable, because he looked a little uncomfortable in Stoutland's drill, but you're getting the best player available. And the one thing you do not want is backup tackles protecting an older Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, they have 2 really good starting tackles on paper,
Yep.
but Tyron Smith is guaranteed to miss at least a few games every year.
Yep.
And yeah, it's best player available at a position of need. I think that's a no-brainer. All right, so the Vikings at pick 11, their consensus pick is JJ McCarthy, so we cannot pick him.
Oops.
Man, this is tough because I do think Bo Nix at 11 is a reach.
A little bit.
Man, they have pick 23. And when I'm looking at the rest of the teams,
Mm-hmm.
I think
Dallas
there's a chance
Mm-hmm.
that I think Bo Nix or JJ McCarthy is going to be there at 23.
Mm-hmm.
So for the Vikings, I'm just going to go best player available at a position of need and take I'm going to take Dallas Turner for the Vikings. They lose Danielle Hunter. Turner is kind of similar to Danielle Hunter, even though he's not as polished. He's definitely more polished than Hunter was coming out of college. And it's going to be a nervous hour and a half in the Vikings draft room as they wait for pick 23 with trades banned.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Pick number 12, the Broncos, their consensus pick is Bo Nix. So, this is a team that still needs a quarterback. They have some very strong foundational pieces still on the team, but I think that Sean Payton has some form of job security. I don't know about George Payton, but I think Sean Payton is going to be pretty happy with being able to develop JJ McCarthy. The mobility is there, the it factor is there, and if you do have comfortability with your job security, then you are willing to take some years of mediocrity if you believe a player can develop into something special. So I'm going to go JJ McCarthy.
Yep, makes total sense. All right, the Raiders at pick 13, their consensus player is Quinyon Mitchell, who is off the board. So we can kind of do whatever. Defensive line has been a common pick for them up until free agency, and they were able to address that need with Christian Wilkins. So I'm just going to go with the best offensive lineman available and take Olu Fashanu. I think that it's definitely a debate for me between Fashanu and Fa'utanu. All these offensive linemen, like we learned how to pronounce their names, and then they all turns out they had different pronunciations. So still adjusting to that.
Yep.
But we're gonna go with Olu Fashanu. solidify that offensive line. Could make the argument for quarterback here, but I think that it's a clear tier difference in terms of caliber of prospect.
Sure. And plus, if you have a really solid team with mediocre quarterback play, you will be back in that pick 13 range. So you're not shooting yourself in the foot like the Patriots possibly could by essentially building a better team and then putting yourself out of a similar pick range. Pick 14, the consensus pick for the New Orleans Saints is Olu Fashanu. Now, the question is, are they going to be looking to replace their failure in Trevor Penning and, take one on the chin, or are they going to look and, beef up another part of their team? Before they ended up getting Chase Young, would have said Jared Verse would be a great selection here. I think that guy's phenomenal. Byron Murphy is an intriguing option to add to that defensive interior. But I honestly think adding somebody who's just down the street and adding a little bit more fuel to the fire, even though Derek Carr he's Derek Carr. I'm going to go Brian Thomas Jr. here. I think that, the top end weapons of this class are relatively limited in terms of the ones who could become a true X receiver. And Brian Thomas and AD Mitchell are those type of guys. I love the speed that he brings to the table. It's my dream to pair him up with Rashid Shaheed and as well as Chris Olave and bring that height and that speed to the table.
Yeah, I love that pick. Could definitely make the argument for defensive line, but man, I feel like every time I do a mock draft, the Saints are just a roster where it's like they either are bad or old at most positions. So I really don't think you can go wrong with what you pick. All right, Colts at 15. Let's see. Their consensus is hold on, left the page.
Terrion Arnold.
Their consensus is Terrion Arnold. So we can go with another cornerback in Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. They are out of the L'Jarius Sneed running, it seems like. Nate Wiggins, I am worried about his weight. There's, going to be a lot of comparisons to Emmanuel Forbes from last year, but I just think on tape, Nate Wiggins is a different level of prospect, because Emmanuel Forbes was undersized and really stiff changing directions. Nate Wiggins is undersized, but has the fluidity that you would expect for a player of that stature. So I think Nate Wiggins is a no-brainer pick for me.
Right. And Nate looks a little bit thin on tape, but you can still see that his instincts are able to make up for the fact that he's not able to essentially body someone who's about 215 pounds, which most corners can't. But when you looked at Emmanuel Forbes, this dude looked like a stick bug on the field. So, you could see a legitimate difference. Plus, Nate's back up into the 180s, didn't run his 40. Of course, he tweaked his leg during his 40, but at least he is at NFL size. So that's a plus. Pick 16 for Seattle. Their consensus pick is Troy Fautanu. Is it Fautanu? I mean,
it's Fautanu.
Fautanu. Okay, that's sick. I want to take him anyways, just for that. But I actually am going to look at a very unique position here. I didn't expect for him to fall this far. I'm actually going to go Tali Fuaga. He's a amazing player. That right tackle spot certainly could be up for grabs with Abe Lucas having some injury concerns, but the guard spot in the short run is vacant. Like Lewis is gone, obviously. So you're going to be able to at least use Tolly in the short run as an amazing run blocking guard, but you might have your contingency plan there for right tackle as well.
Yep, I've made this pick for the Seahawks at least once, I think maybe twice, but I really like how that fits with giving you a backup plan at right tackle if Abe Lucas doesn't work out. And in the short term, he's a plug and play guard. I think the best run blocking tape in this class. Oh, yeah. So big fan of that pick. Jags at 17. Their consensus pick is Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. And I'm actually not really considering cornerback for them in the first round personally. What I'm going to go for the Jags, man, I'm debating between two players.
We'll see if we're on the same page. I have one guy who I really would want for him.
I think I'm going to just take the best weapon available and take Brock Bowers out of Georgia. I was considering AD Mitchell, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that Brock Bowers is closer to a can't miss prospect than AD Mitchell. I'm as big of a fan of AD as anyone, but I have to acknowledge there is kind of a bust factor with him. But yeah, just gotta try to squeeze the last bit of hope left out of Trevor Lawrence's rookie deal and try to get him a weapon that can maybe get both feet in bounds and convert some of those touchdown opportunities.
Can you imagine Evan Ingram, Britton Strange, and Brock Bowers? Just 31 personnel. Just say, screw it. We don't need wide receivers.
Here's the thing. Britton Strange does not move me at all. Like that. That's great that they spent a whatever second or third round pick on him. Not really a fan of him as a prospect, and he didn't show anything as a rookie. So I'm good with Evan Ingram and Brock Bowers. They're slot receivers to me. You can find a guy for $1 million in August to come in and be your blocking tight end. And I think it's the same thing. Like I've mocked Brock Bowers to the Bears several times, even though they have Cole Kmet. It's like, all right, Cole Kmet can line up with his hand in the ground. Brock Bowers is out at slot. They're going to walk a linebacker out over him, and it's going to be a mismatch. So I don't have any concerns with that.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you on that front. It's also why guys like Theo Johnson shouldn't be overdrafted either. And I actually have Brock Bowers listed as weapon and not tight end because I really do think that you don't need to have a solidified position for him. I debated taking him for the Seahawks, but Tali Fuaga is my boy, so I'm a big fan of him there. Pick 18, Bengals, their consensus pick is J.C. Latham. I'm actually going to go after an offensive tackle that was considered to be an offensive guard earlier in the draft cycle. You're going to have to help me pronounce this again. Is it Fautanu?
Yeah.
I love that. I should have taken him like top 10 just for that alone. I know he plays left tackle and he's going to have to shift over to right, but you know what? Dreams can come true. I actually watched some extra tape of him earlier today. I'm doing all my tackle re-evals, and there's something special about, the way that he's progressed as an actual pass blocker and the intricacy of his game, his footwork. And, he kind of seemed almost like a guard playing tackle. But this year, I thought he took a really big step into really fitting into that tackle mold. So I'm a big fan of that. Great asset in the run game as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm a little bit lower on Troy Fautanu than consensus. I have been warming up to him. Like that combine workout was, CJ Stroud levels of impressive. He looked like, there's questions about whether he can play tackle or guard. He looked like he could play cornerback the way that he was out on the field.
That's a good one.
And, I felt like there were times on tape that slide quickness didn't really show up, but yeah, I'm a lot more confident just seeing him, especially compared to all the other offensive linemen. He was on a different level.
Where do you have him on your board?
Let's see. I think I have him like 20.
He's 22. Okay, he's 22 on mine. But
yeah, I just he was like pre-combine, he was in the late 30s. So yeah, he was definitely my biggest riser from the combine on my personal board.
Yeah.
The Rams at 19, their consensus pick is Johnny Newton. I think defensive tackle is going to be a pretty popular mock draft pick for the Rams. I'm personally not really that concerned about the position. Obviously, Aaron Donald's a huge loss, but Kobe Turner, I think, should have won Defensive Rookie of the Year. He's looking like a steal, one of many steals from that class, which is shaping up to be potentially historic. So I think we're good on defensive tackle. I think, to me, the obvious pick is just staring us right in the face, and it's Cooper DeJean, defensive back out of Iowa. I have him as a safety. I posted some like table or chart or something that had him as a safety, and the position police came after me, said that I was being lazy. I do think that like when you actually watch his cornerback reps, like there is some hip tightness that would preclude him from being in a press man heavy scheme where he's going to have to mirror guys like horizontally across the field. But in the Rams scheme where he's going to be playing off quarters, eyes on the quarterback, and just like being instinctive, breaking on passes, I think that's a perfect scheme fit for him. So with the Rams, I think he could play corner. Really could just slide into any defensive back spot.
Mm. I do love that versatility as well because you can just find the right role for him. That's why I think he should be going relatively higher than maybe some people suggest, because you're going to be getting the bust factor is relatively low because he can play multiple positions. Okay, so this is my pick for my Steelers at 20. Our consensus pick is Jackson Powers Johnson. Would love to add another JPJ to our roster, but not today. I think that, with all the great offseason moves that we've made for the most part, Con absolutely fleecing the Bears once again. I am kind of a sucker for storylines. I got to call myself out on that. And I really love the idea of Broderick Jones pairing up with Amarius Mims again. It might be a little bit of time for Amarius to get 100% healthy, 100% comfortable. But, we've dealt with Dan Moore before. I think we're kind of used to dealing with Dan Moore. We might need to get used to him for just a couple more games. But Amarius Mims is my guy.
Yeah, I love his tape. If you could guarantee me that he was going to be healthy, he would be a top 10 player for me. I have him just outside of the top 10 because there are some injury concerns. He misses games, but then he'll also, when you're watching him on tape, like he'll be in for the first 20 snaps, then he'll come out of the game, and then he's like back in the fourth quarter. I have concerns about him staying healthy, but if you can get some injury luck there, Amarius Mims and Broderick Jones, that's an explosive tackle duo. The Dolphins are picking at 21. Their consensus pick is Byron Murphy, which makes a lot of sense with Christian Wilkins out of the way. Offensive line is, I think, still the place that I want to target for the Dolphins. And I'm going to go with Graham Barton, offensive lineman out of Duke. Played left tackle. He's got kind of short arms. So a popular inside conversion candidate. I think, he can play center. He played some of that early in his college career. I have him listed as a guard, but I really think that he has 5-position versatility, at least like as a swing tackle in a pinch. And they have multiple needs across the offensive line. So you can just kind of sort that out in camp and try to get your best 5 on the field.
Yeah. Deep down, I wish you went Jackson Powers Johnson because apparently he grew up a Dolphins fan. But
really?
Yeah, but the Graham Barton's one hell of a great player. He actually went to Duke as a center too. So
yeah,
that's fun.
Yeah, he's from my hometown. He was a lot younger than me, so I didn't know him or anything. But the interesting thing with Jackson Powers Johnson, I saw this board. I can't remember who did it, but it was like someone that talked to a bunch of like scouts and league sources and kind of came up with their best shot at a league-wide consensus board. And Jackson Powers Johnson was not in the top 50. And I see like people who are plugged in. Mel Kiper, I don't think has had him in any of his mock drafts. Wow. So I kind of get the sense that the league is maybe lower on Jackson Powers Johnson than at least I am, and I know a lot of people in draft media are. So I don't think they have like prop bets or anything, but I would honestly bet that he falls out of the first round if I could.
Now that is intriguing. That's some good notes right there because I didn't even pick up on that. But that's very true because I didn't realize. I think I looked at Daniel Jeremiah's mock, and he actually went to the Cowboys, but like obviously he ended up slipping past 21, where 16 is a possible spot for him because people love like the Oregon and Washington guys staying near Washington, right, with Seattle, and then 21, that's a great spot for him as well. And then the Cowboys, it's like they need a center. So get a center. So I definitely intriguing right there. For the Eagles, I'll say this. We're seeing a lot of corners going to them in the first round, and I'm gonna be straight up. I'm going to take one here as well. I'm going to take Kool-Aid, but the common consensus pick is Cooper DeJean. But I'm going to take Kool-Aid. He just ran a 4.46, technically unofficial, but kiss my rear unless it's lower than what I expect, which then I'll just say it's fake. Cough, cough, Kamari Lassiter. But the Eagles have the best backup corner core in the NFL. They have legitimately a ton of starters. But if you want to compete for a Super Bowl in this modern NFL, you need a Pro Bowl corner, maybe even an all-pro corner. And the Eagles just don't have that anymore. Darius Slay and James Baldberry, they're just not going to cut it. If you really want to get a Super Bowl, if you don't want to get a Super Bowl and just want to be good, go after another position. But if you really want a chance at a Super Bowl, go after Kool-Aid McKinstry. I know that he's someone who has been slipping out of some first round mocks, but tested out much faster than expected today. Jones fracture on his foot, getting his surgery on Friday. But, he's one of those players where when I watched him, he would actually take a rep off, end up getting beat on said rep. The next play, I don't think that the quality of play is beat by any other player in this class at the corner position. His high-end play, when he's really going 100%, is the best in the class. So I'm going to take a shot on that in 22.
Yeah, man. I said in my scouting report that he looks like he's been practicing his press coverage shuffle technique since he was born. Like, he's one of those players that it's just, you can tell he's got so many reps in the bank, just like it's effortless from a technical standpoint. It's rare that you say someone has a high floor at cornerback because it's such a volatile position, but I think that I think Kool-Aid, like it would be hard for me to see him just being awful. So let's see, Vikings at 23, and they survived. Bo Nix is still available at 23, and that's going to be my pick. I personally have Bo Nix ahead of JJ McCarthy. I do acknowledge with Nix, I think like the ceiling might be kind of limited just as an older player, doesn't really have an elite like trump card trait. I think he's just above average across the board, B student. Production obviously inflated by a lot of screens, but when you actually watch him like operate NFL style concepts, I think that he can be a plug and play starter on a rookie contract. In hindsight, like with this scenario, I would have just kept Kirk Cousins because I think 90th percentile outcome for Bo Nix is that he becomes a Kirk Cousins caliber quarterback. So you're kind of just in the same position, but I don't necessarily see that upside with JJ McCarthy either. So save out on some draft value and take Bo Nix at 23.
I'll just say this: I'll take Bo Nix and Dallas Turner any day over JJ McCarthy.
Oh yeah.
Pick number 24. I'm like killing myself right now because Jared Verse is still on the board, and this is just not a spot where I can pass on Jackson Powers Johnson because the Cowboys, their identity, similar to the Steelers during their competitive years, has been consistent offensive line play. And you need to have that. You need to win the battle of the trenches before you start getting excited about going after in addition to already a strength. Like Jackson Powers Johnson's a very solid player. He's going to be in addition to a liability. And I'd rather have an asset to a liability than an asset to an asset at this point. And even if I have Jared Verse slightly above JPJ, I'm still going to go after the player that can really add that wins above replacement. So Jackson Powers Johnson is my dude. And Tyler Guyton's the consensus pick as well. So
yeah, easy pick sense there. I think like, very similar player stylistically to Tyler Biadasz. Also has some guard versatility if Zach Martin decides to hang it up in a year or two, which he probably will. So I like that pick. Packers at 25. Thinking that they address safety and free agency with Xavier McKinney. Still need a linebacker. Too early for any linebackers. Their consensus pick is Graham Barton, by the way, who's off the board. Defensive line, edge, those are both, I think, moderate needs for them. Too rich right here for Tyler Guyton to me. Don't see them going receiver in the first round.
It's a tough spot.
It's a tough spot. There really are not like a lot of picks that I think are great value. Yeah. So I'm just going to go. Yeah, I'm just going best player available and taking Byron Murphy out of Texas. To me, he is a top. I have him 13th on my board. I think it's a close battle between him and Johnny Newton, who I also like, but Murphy is a little bit more athletic and, can just add to that defensive line rotation, replace some older veterans that they have down the line.
Yeah. For 26, the Buccaneers consensus pick is Latu, and I'm gonna go Jared Verse, but I also have Byron Murphy as 13th on my board. So going BPA seems to be a pretty
Great
strong
minds.
strategy. Yeah, great minds think alike. But Jared Verse shouldn't be here at 26. He just falls because if like feel free to correct me if you don't think I'm right. Not many teams are essentially desperate for an edge 2 or even an edge 1 anymore. Like we're at that point where we've had a lot of solid edge talent come into this league and either develop or just start really well from the beginning. And it's such a high value position that there's been so much of a focus on it that I just don't really think there's a huge demand for it in the NFL at this rate.
Yeah, and like the players or the teams that really need edge are all picking in the top half of the first round. So
Mm-hmm.
if they don't take an edge, then I think you could easily see one or even two of these top three guys fall into the late 20s. Cause like teams that really need an edge rusher, uh, Commanders,
Mm-hmm.
Bears,
Yep.
Bears might take an edge at 9.
Mm-hmm.
Falcons, we couldn't take Dallas Turner here. So we went with Terry and
Mm-hmm.
Arnold. Chargers, honestly, Titans need an edge. Vikings, we took an edge for them. Broncos need an edge.
Yep.
Saints, like it's a lot of the teams in the top half, and then as you go down the list, it's not as big of a need. So yeah, one of the cool things about like doing this exercise is just by switching up a few things, you can kind of see how some guys might fall
Oh yeah.
based on need. So
Oh, 100%.
speaking of edge, the Cardinals picking at 27. We got Malik Neighbors for them at 4. Their consensus pick is Kool-Aid McKinstry, who's off the board, so we're in the clear there. Um, I'm almost tempted to double up at receiver. That might be a little
Ooh,
bit irresponsible because they do have so many needs defensively. They
they
need an edge
compliment though.
rusher. They need
They
a
do compliment.
cornerback.
Yeah.
Um, should be good at tackle with the Jonah Williams signing. I'm gonna
Okay.
go with Leatu Latu. They were sending out some insurance salesmen on the edge last year, and I think that Latu had a great testing
Mm-hmm.
off season with as far as the combine. Ran a good 40 time, looked so natural running the
Mm-hmm.
towel drill, like seeing him
Yep.
just bend around the corner, maintain speed. Comes in, runs a really good 3 cone and short shuttle at his pro day. So answered any athleticism questions that you might have, and it'll obviously come down to medicals. But I think Leatu Latu is a solid pick at 27.
I'm curious for your thoughts on this. So, one, did you see that he got up to 267 and then still tested out incredibly well? Like
Yeah,
he's got up 8 pounds.
yeah, he didn't run the 40
Yeah.
at his pro day. Yeah, so he
Yeah.
ran a
It's 3 inch.
4.64, which is 78th percentile,
Mm-hmm.
259. I think he's a decent athlete, and a lot better, especially when it comes to like short area quickness and just
Yeah.
suddenness moving side to side.
Mm-hmm.
Straight line speed is not really his strength, in my opinion. I think
Agreed.
in run defense, you'll see him lose contain and lose the edge to outside
Mm-hmm.
runs, and doesn't really have that chase down speed. Um, but yeah, outside of that, like really my only athleticism concern with Latu is just that he has short arms. But as
Yeah.
far as movement skills, I think he checks all the boxes.
Yeah. So one tiny thing for me about Law 2, and obviously I guess technically this counters what you just said. But my one main issue with his overall movement is his lower body strength. I didn't see him really pushing the offensive tackles nearly enough for that short arm length because in my mind, since the NFL tackles are obviously going to probably have NFL tackle arm length, you're not going to be able to essentially control the engagement. And a lot of these tackles are relatively fleet of foot, so they're relatively agile. So he's not really going to get many clean angles to the quarterback. So my only issue with him so far has been, when you aren't able to get around a tackle or be able to essentially make a move around a tackle, can you push through them? And I didn't see that, but I'm curious to see if you might have seen enough tape to give you some comfortability in that regard.
No, I totally agree. And that's why he is my third ranked edge. I think
Yep.
that um, you rarely see him win with power on tape.
Mhm,
I watched, I think, every game except maybe one, and
mhm,
there was like a couple true wins with power moves. And even if you're not actually using a bull rush or a long arm, just having that functional play strength to be able
mhm.
to like maintain your angle when you're bending around the edge. Play
Yep.
strength is, I'm not breaking news here, but that's extremely important playing on the trenches. And so for a finesse guy that isn't this elite athlete,
Mhm.
yeah, do have some concerns about his ceiling.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm pretty much with you there.
Noted. Actually, I just got a text from him, but my number 3 edge rusher just jumped Leatu Latu. It's Marshawn Nealand. I've just fell in love with him. Did you see he had I think it's the 3 cone. He had a faster 3 cone than Chop Robinson. It was wild. I was
Really?
like,
I know
what?
his short shuttle was insane. I'll
It might
pull
have
it
been
up right
that.
here.
It was whatever
Yeah,
one Chop did at the combine. He did. He actually got a better one than
his
Chop.
short shuttle was 418, which is 93rd percentile. And then Chop Robinson had a 425 shuttle,
Yeah,
which is
it's
83rd.
wild.
Still good. You see that
Wild.
short shuttle with Nealand, like they'll drop him into zone coverage a lot, and he
Yeah,
can just
crazy.
slide back and forth effortlessly.
I know. I love him to death. So, big fan of his game. But that was like one of the guys who had that very similar frame at 267, same as Latu, has that lower body strength and a little bit less flexibility, in my opinion. But
Right.
at pick 28, AD Mitchell would have been my dream pick here. Of course, it's the consensus pick. Gotta love y'all when we get the one pick I wanted to do get axed from me like that. But I do think this team could certainly upgrade. I think defensive interior wise for the long run, I don't think it's a bad idea to go after Jerzon Newton. Johnny Newton confirmed this. He said that apparently people have been saying he's hard to coach, which is intriguing. But I'm not really ready just yet to go Lad McConkey when you have Khalil Shakir that I think has that short range explosiveness, high IQ to be able to sit in soft zone. Like I have a lot of faith in his ability, and I love Lad McConkey a lot. I think I'm just going to go after someone that I think could be an absolute steal, and that is Jerzon Newton. He is above 300 pounds. The ability to shed a block is unbelievably elite. It's him and Latu for disengaging from blocks at the most elite levels, and that's very hard to find. He actually has really solid straight line speed as well. That's what caught him. He caught my eye versus Wisconsin 2022 because he just bolted at the quarterback. But I think the Bills could certainly continue to use interior pressure, and that's sometimes, I mean, it's how the Rams won the Super Bowl versus the Bengals is Aaron Donald creating a hell of a lot of pressure. So maybe Johnny can do the same.
Yeah, maybe he is hard to coach, but it's like somebody taught him all these moves that he
Yeah,
executes at such a high level. So
he's hard to
there's someone
block.
that was able to get through to him. Lions at 29. Chop Robinson is the consensus pick. Uh, Probably would not have been considering him. But cornerback, I think is less of a need, but could still make the argument if there's someone there that you liked. Um, they addressed defensive tackle with DJ Reader,
Mhm.
edge rusher. You could think about
Marshawn Nealand.
if it's not the biggest need, but if AD Mitchell's still on the board, like I'm running that card in, Lad McConkey, I think definitely could win on the outside, but maybe a little bit superfluous with Amon-Ra St. Brown, and getting AD Mitchell as just a big body receiver to pair next to Jameson Williams. You're really setting up your receiver core in a good spot for the long run.
Oh yeah, and they traded for Donovan Peoples-Jones last year, I believe, at the trade deadline. So they've shown the at least understood demand for a receiver with a 6'2" plus frame that can complement the wide receivers. Of course, DPJ not going to be that guy, but if somehow, some way, AD Mitchell falls to this point, it'd be very, very hard to say no. Okay, pick number 30. Jordan Morgan apparently is the consensus pick for the Baltimore Ravens. I do love that people are very cognizant of the potential issues on the offensive line for the Ravens, but luckily for the Ravens, we have a developmental right tackle that is going to compete with the developmental right tackle. I don't think there's that many great options here for the Ravens that would improve the future with Ronnie Stanley's injury history and, Daniel Failele's play in general.
Yeah, ability.
Yeah, ability. Just we're gonna get an instant upgrade in Tyler Guyton. You also take him away from the San Francisco 49ers, which I think almost screwing over your competitors is more valuable than boosting your own abilities. But that's just coming from a pessimistic person like myself.
I like it.
I
Yeah,
love it.
Tyler Guyton's just one of those players where like he could end up being anything. It wouldn't shock me if he was out of the league in 3 years. Not because he's a bad person or anything, but like
You're just like, get him out of here.
I felt like his tape was just, to me, not good, but I see the natural talent, and like if you get someone that can fix his hand placement, a lot of it felt like 90% of the pressures he gave up were just him letting people get to the quarterback. Like it wasn't him losing a one-on-one block. It's like he just undersets someone, sprints around the edge, or like he just is late to react to someone coming through the B gap or something. So there's a lot of stuff that I think is very coachable. Don't know if the year one level of play is going to be great, but a lot more of a long-term building block. I like that.
Where do you have him on your board? I'm curious because I have him outside my top 32 explicitly. He's at 42 on mine, and I have like a short, like 3-word reasoning as to why they're there, and it's just high upside. Nothing has in day one impact, but
I have Tyler Guyton at 32.
Okay.
So right inside the top 32.
Gotcha.
Another thing with him is like I was seeing him when I was on the field for the Senior Bowl, like the way that he was talking to coaches and players, I thought was really impressive. Like he really seems like somebody that's dedicated to improving his craft. Try not to like buy in too much to that kind of stuff, since I don't really know these people, but definitely seems like a high character guy.
Sure.
All right. 49ers at 31. Consensus is Amarius Mims. Consensus is way too low on him. I think, O-line is still the go-to pick for me. Although I do think receiver is interesting with Deebo Samuel having a big cap hit. Brandon Ayuk, there seems to be some stall there as far as getting him extended. So it wouldn't surprise me if they ended up going receiver. I do think though that offensive tackle is much more of a pressing need. Jordan Morgan, I view firmly as a guard. So like really I'm wanting to replace Colton McKivitz at right tackle, ideally. You could honestly go with a guard though. Like I wouldn't hate Christian Haynes as kind of a spicy pick here.
Okay.
This is a difficult one.
Christian Haynes and Tyler Guyton were a nasty duo though in Mobile though. I loved seeing them play together. I pray that I could see that once again.
Yeah, man. Dude, Christian Haynes just
nasty.
I said this like in some video, but it's like UConn has a rule where they can only have one good football player at a time. They had Travis Jones, and then now they've got Christian Haynes, and like you're watching his tape, they're down 35-0 to Florida International or whatever, and they're just like running outside zone, getting blown up at the line of scrimmage, but Christian Haynes is pancaking someone 15 yards down the field. As far as what I think is actually going to happen though for the Niners in this situation, I would probably go with Kingsley Suamataia. Another player that I'm definitely lower on than consensus. I have him at 53 on my board. I think like,
I have him at 63.
Man, I all these guys that I'm thinking I'm low on,
I know
you're outdoing me. I got to step my game up.
I know you're like, I'm low on this guy, and I'm like, I love this guy. It's like, I don't know if you heard of Broshmo, but he and I are like the exact opposite, where he's like, dude, I love this player. And I'm like, absolute cheeks. And then I have him higher than Broshmo. I love it to death. So it's nice to be on the other side of it for once.
Yeah, it's so funny. Man, I feel like I'm a broken record because I just recorded a video where I was kind of like saying this same thing, but like whether or not you quote unquote like a guy in the draft is so arbitrary and just completely dependent
Yeah.
on where are we talking about him going. Because like I have players that I have a 5th round grade on that I
Mhm.
would, if you asked me like, do you like this player, I'd be like, yeah, I like him, he's got, a
Mhm.
lot of positive things going for him.
Oh yeah.
But then if I started seeing him go in the 1st round of mock drafts, it would be like, no, I don't like him. It's all
Yeah.
relative.
Yep.
um
Very true. And it's
but
also relative to the team, the system,
exactly, yeah.
like Sua Matea, if he ends up going to, I can't say the Lions because Penny Sewell's there, but like if he ends up going to the Bills or the Cardinals, where I don't trust the mentorship there, I'm going to be significantly lower than if Trent Williams is literally coaching this dude to be the best version of himself. So that's why I'm like fully on board with the 31, even though significantly lower.
Yeah.
But pick 32, ending this off. If I'm not mistaken, this is an Xavier Worthy consensus selection. And that would have been a great pick. So I have a lot of hate towards all of y'all for doing that. But I do think I'm probably going to end up going after Ladd McConkey here. Just might as well supercharge that receiving core more than it already is. I do think corner with L'Jarius Sneed wanting to get paid, wanting to get moved is not out of the question, but you're really going to have to start, like, in quotes, reaching for another value talent here. So I'm just going to go after one of the best weapons in the draft in Ladd McConkey, who a lot of people think could be Antonio Brown. But if you're going to go after Xavier Worthy, who runs a 4.21, I don't think someone who's running in the high 4.3s is significantly behind in terms of play speed.
All right, man. That's
That's
gonna do
it.
it. Some spots here that I think are definitely not gonna happen, but cool to play out some scenarios with some guys falling that we don't necessarily expect, which is gonna
Yeah,
happen every year.
always. I mean, good players fall in the draft. It happens. Teams reach because they're uncomfortable with being able to get them at their second round pick or whatever. And, it happens. Hopefully it's not your team, but you know that your team's going to do something wrong in the draft. Even the Steelers, we
Who
do
do you
stuff wrong.
think, if I told you that there was gonna be a Cole Strange pick in like the early 20s or something this year, is there a
Ooh.
player that you could see just, one team having a super high grade on?
I'm looking at my board to see who I'm psychotic on. It might be Marshawn Kneeland, but I don't think we can consider that like a consensus. Like probably we think he would go around 100 that goes in the first. I'm gonna pull one for my guy. This makes me sound like I have absolutely zero credibility, but I'm willing to do that for players I love. Andrew Phillips, corner out of Kentucky. I think this guy is Jair Alexander. I think
Really?
he's phenomenal. Like, speaking of Ladd McConkey, I didn't see a corner run step for step with Ladd McConkey once until I saw Andrew Phillips. I almost didn't study him at all. And I don't know. There's just something about him I fell in love with. He might end up just being a slot because he's just around 5'11. But the fact that this guy just plays with so much fluidity and he could sense when receivers are going to do route shifts. I love it. I love it. So that's my like Hail Mary, so to speak, of a corner, because pretty much after the top few corners, it does get a little convoluted. That's where I might be able to see a big reach for one.
Yeah, him and Jarvis Brownlee were, I think, the two
Oh yeah.
best non-Quinyon Mitchell corners at the Senior Bowl.
Oh yeah. No, that's where I fell in love with Andrew Phillips. To be honest, I should probably take this on the chin as something that I should have known earlier, but I didn't even have Andrew Phillips fully graded by that time. And he just caught me off guard. I'm like, who the hell? Like,
Yeah,
who's this guy?
that's what the Bulls are for, to
They are.
kind of move guys up your list as far as who to watch. All right,
Oh
man.
yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
Probably going to do one on your channel in the next couple weeks.
Oh yeah.
Everybody make sure to go subscribe to that. Follow him on Twitter, and I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me on.